This video came as a question. A person wanted to understand what a person surviving or living beyond sexual abuse. I like that, living beyond sexual abuse, living in spite of sexual abuse, what that could be like. There was a young lady who wrote me in reference to her partner, and the first thing I can say is I don't know what it's like for her, because for every person who's surviving sexual abuse, or living with sexual abuse, living after sexual abuse, there are different circumstances. It could have been a family member. It's usually an authority figure, someone that's trusted by family, and usually even by the person that was violated. So, and then the results of that. Some people tell, some people never tell, some people are believed, some people are believed and the person still stays in the home. Some people are not believed. So each of those things create different schisms, isms, dynamics, mental patterns of dysfunction and distortion. The first thing I can say, I'm at my yoni tree. Mommy loves me. So I came to her to do this video, and I'm surrounded by snow, which I felt like would be very clearing and cleansing for me, as I shared. And I really had to gear up for this. I felt myself teary-eyed and emotional about it because you know, and one of the things I wanted to say, as a person who has dealt with different types of sexual abuse, I didn't deal with it for almost 20 years. The first time it happened, I was 5. I didn't really face my issues with sexual abuse or what might be going on until I was in a healthy and positive relationship, which for whatever reason was the first really positive relationship. I felt loved and safe and protected and guarded, which made me act out all kinds of ways. Like I did not know how to deal with good, healthy love. My first experiences with love were not healthy for my parents. I love them, but they just weren't healthy people, and so it wasn't healthy. And I'm just now getting in a healthy relationship with my mother, and I'll be 40 in May. So it can happen. It can happen. Keep hope alive. Still not with my dad, but that's okay. Happened with my mom. I'm grateful. So with that being said, you're looking at beings who have probably swallowed most of their pain, most of their life, and haven't given them themselves permission to grieve for the little child in them. And then once you grieve for the little child, you have to grieve for the adult, because the little child that you grieve for makes you realize that as a woman and or a man, I've talked to men and women, many men and women who have been sexually abused, who for whatever reason felt safe to share their story with me, and I'm grateful for that. And I carry their hearts in my heart, and I love them, and I send light and love and healing energy to every person who has ever dealt with a violation sexually on their person, whether it be as an adult or a child through rape or molestation. I send love to you. I send light to you. I want you to know that you are worthy, you are valuable, you are lovable. You did not deserve what happened to you. You did not bring it upon yourself, and you don't have to be stuck in a cycle of not feeling like you're good enough, because you are more than good enough. You're more than good enough. With that being said, you learn some really distorted things about yourself. First of all, it gives you major trust issues 9 times out of 10, because a person that you should have been able to trust, and the people that you feel like should have protected you and put you around people that you could trust, have all failed. You know, your parents or your grandmother or your grandfather or your teachers or whoever did not protect you from this predator. And then the predator themselves, if they're a family member or a friend of the family, ouch. Sorry, y'all, my foot is hurting. If they're a friend of the family, they didn't protect you either. They turned out to be a predator, and they preyed on you. So your trust is hard a lot of times for someone dealing with emotional, mental, or physical abuse on any level, because the people who you thought would protect you and love you and make you safe didn't. And then it gives you the message that love is pain, and people that love you will hurt you and damage you. Which isn't true, because it wasn't love that made that person act that way. It was their sickness. But how does a 7-year-old process that? How does a 27-year-old process that? It's hard. So first you mourn for the child, and then you have to mourn for the adult who has been acting out in relationships. Like I said, I wanted to leave my positive relationship. I felt like I was too much of a mess for him, and he didn't deserve to have to put up with what it would take to get me to a place where I would believe that he wasn't going to leave me or abandon me or hurt me, because from up to that point, that's all I knew, you know. And he was good. He passed away, but he was really good with my heart. And he made me able to face it. And I ended up going to therapy and getting some assistance at learning how to love myself better and to forgive myself and to forgive those that I was angry and bitter at, because it does create a resentment in you and a bitterness, especially when you have to start doing the work on healing. It's like, why should I have to do all this damn work because somebody else was an asshole and an abuser, or you know, and at the end of the day they were sick. But you know, sometimes you feel like that's letting them off the hook, and I let them off. I mean, I remember not telling on the person that abused me because I didn't want my father to get upset or my mother, and I didn't want them to hurt him. And so I grew up wanting to protect the abuser. Empaths, so crazy like that. Or this empath, I'll speak for myself. So I became codependent, you know, always wanting to fix things. You never know what's going to trigger the pain. It could be something as simple as somebody not calling me back when they said they would, that will send the little girl in me spiraling to that place of not being able to trust and not feeling safe. Just something really simple that maybe other people wouldn't have an issue with. I can go from 0 to 90 on it. And I have to really work through it. Sometimes I have to pull myself back and sit with myself and comfort myself and say, that person didn't do anything that bad. Like, don't be mad at them right now. It's okay. Like, they're not trying to hurt you, or they're not trying to get over on you. Trust, like I said, is a big issue. So for me, telling me you're going to do anything and not following through is like almost a deal breaker. And it's just that simple. Like, even phone calls. I'm like, well, if you can't even call me back when you say you're going to call me back, I can't expect you to be the person who I can depend on in life. And it's kind of like that for me sometimes. So as a mate, I would suggest that you be supportive. The truth is, most people who are dealing with childhood abuse, like I said, take many, many years to even face it. If they ever face it, they still may be acting out from it even though they haven't faced it. And then they've never had anywhere to really let that go, because people don't know how to receive it and they feel helpless from the pain, or they have the idea where they become kind of defensive and they want the person just to hurry up and get over it and move on with it because it happened when you were 2 and it happened when you were 5, and why are you struggling with that at 35? And so that creates another place where the person feels unsupported and don't feel safe again. And so as a mate, if you can create an environment where that person can talk and really share, like, this is what because it'll be triggered by the simplest things. You might watch a TV show. You might come into the kitchen and the person is stirring a pot a certain way and cooking, and it creates a flash that reminds you, and tears can come. And so somebody may think that the person is emotionally unstable, or and these things continue to trap the person in their pain because they never have a place to fully release and feel accepted, and usually they haven't accepted themselves. So I would suggest that you create an environment where dialogue can happen. Understand if the person doesn't want to be touched sometimes. They may not be able to handle your touch. Understand if they need to be held a little bit longer. Sometimes for me, I'm probably the opposite. I don't really get to a place where I don't like touch. I probably like touch too much. Like, I need to be held, babied. I never got that as a little girl. So that comes out in me a lot, baby me. And I will pout and all of that. Even now, enlightened and awakened and all of that, growing in my awakenedness, I still pout when I don't get my way. Ask any man who's dealt with me. Ask any girlfriend who has dealt with me. I pout. So with that being said, you will find that there is sometimes a self-dependence or a self-dependence, not interdependence. It's hard for someone who's been violated in that way to depend on other people. So they might overcompensate for their own selves, which makes it hard for people to love them or help them. Like they never want to be in a position where they need anything because they don't really trust that people will be there to catch them when they fall. You know, I have to talk to myself even about people who say they want to support me in my business. I've been doing a GoFundMe. And I have all these people who will, you know, inbox me, oh, let me know what I can do to help. Let me know what I can do to help. Let me know what I can do to help. And sometimes I can feel that in me, like no one really supports me. I have to support myself. My ancestors are speaking. I hear the high pitch. My cosmic ancestors are pushing that out of my mind. That is not the truth. Thank you. But anyway, but I have those moments and I have to work through them, and I know better than that. There are people who support me, but it's easy to get caught up in those old paradigms. What I do want to share is that when you go through trauma or when you go through anything, there are chemicals that release in your body that create cellular programming and neurological programming. So certain things will trigger those things, and to change those programs, you have to go in and rewrite them, those codes, and you have to go back to that instant. You know, some people call it fragments of the soul, like calling back those fragmented parts, the places where you got rid of certain parts of your soul when you were hurt. Cutting cords is another way to help. Praying over, if you can, praying over. And making sex something sacred can be beautiful because there are different gamuts that people go. You have sexual deviance born out, sexual promiscuity born out of sexual abuse. You have sexual repression born out of sexual abuse. So you have some people who cannot function sexually, who feel bad if they do function sexually. You have other people who overcompensate. I know one of my goddess sisters who said she would never be faithful to a man. She just doesn't feel like she can just be with one man. I know that from men too. I know people who struggle with their sexuality and feel like the reason why they crave, you know, different things is because they were molested, and that might be why they want to be with a woman or the same sex, or, you know, a male if they're a male. I mean, it just, all these different distortions, and you deal with this as an adult. Like, you're not a little kid dealing with this, trying to work through all of this. So creating a safe place for them to be sexual is important. Letting them know that they're not just a sexual object is important. I would say sex is holy. It's beautiful. It can be a great offering and a great temple and altar for you to worship each other if you have the right mate who is loving and you know who you are and you do the healing work. So I'm just now learning how to own my sexuality. I used to hate being called sexy. That was part of the reason why. It's because of the sexual abuse. Sexy was an insult to me. If someone thought I was sexy, I would be like, why don't you think I'm beautiful? And why don't you think I'm intelligent? I'm all those other things. I mean, it was a defensiveness that would come up in me from the word sexy alone. So, I mean, again, I can't speak for all people living beyond sexual abuse, but I can say that for most of us, we deal with feelings of self-worth, feeling that we're good enough or bad enough, feeling like we have to please. Saying yes when we don't want to say yes becomes something that's ingrained. You'll find a lot of people who, that's why they're promiscuous. It's not that they're really whorish or have high sex drives. They just don't know how to say no because they were taught at a very early age that their no didn't have power. It's just so many things. I might have to do 2 videos on it, but this is the first video. So if you can create an environment for her where she feels loved and safe, it's really important, because a lot of times we don't feel fully accepted, and generally that's because we haven't accepted ourselves, and most of us will not do the work that it takes to accept ourselves because to face what happened to us is too painful. To love and protect that little girl now or that little boy now is too much. It brings up in our minds. It's never too much. It's worth it. I encourage every person who has not done the self-work to do whatever self-work you have to face whatever shadow, embrace it, love it, and integrate it with your divine and holy self so that you can be free and that you can recognize when you're responding from the old paradigm and the old pattern and from the abuse and from the need to survive. And so that you can really get to loving yourself and being loved, because you are lovable, you are worthy, you are wonderful, you are beautiful, you are powerful. And it was all that beauty and wonder that made a person want to take from you. And that can distort you where you don't want to shine and you don't want to be beautiful and you don't want to be attractive, because in your mind you fear what that means. That means someone will damage me or hurt me, but that's a lie. And you're an adult now. You can protect yourself. You can make wise choices. You can trust your own voice. You can trust that you will pick people who can support you and love you. And you can trust that when you find out those people don't support and love you, that you will be fine and you can move on to better and more positive and powerful situations for yourself. I love you. I'm going to end on that note because I think that's a great place to end. Again, if you have questions, please inbox me. Facebook, Starfly Awakening. Awakenings of a Starfly, my artist page. Here on YouTube, you can send a message in the comments or an inbox, or at starfly7@gmail.com. You can also set up a session if you would like to have an energetic consultation with me to work through and face some of these things and integrate these different parts of your aspects of yourself. I do couples, individuals, and family. I love you ever so much. I thank you for allowing me to share, inviting me into your lives, and in supporting me energetically. I love you, I love you, I love you, and I love me, I love me, I love me. And we are well, and we are whole, and we are free. Peace.